But right now we've got the Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick, who's there and ready to speak to us on a very important day, Mr. Jenrick. One of our headlines today is about two-tier sentencing, and a lot of our viewers sort of can't believe what they're hearing here. What are they hearing?
Good morning. Well, in 16 hours' time, we will have two-tier justice in this country because biased sentencing guidelines will have come into force which discriminate against white people, against men, against Christians. We have been raising this time and again in the House of Commons, on the media, on GB News, asking the government to act. We brought a bill forward. They rejected it. We said that they should sack the members of the Sentencing Council that produced this guidance. They rebuffed that. And this is now going to come into force in just a matter of hours. And on top of that, we learnt now that the Ministry of Justice under Labour have produced more guidance. This says that you should be prioritised for bail if you're an ethnic minority. And the probation service should take into account what culture you're from, whether you've had historic events that might have affected you or your ancestors when deciding whether or not you should be sentenced. This is wrong, it's unfair, it doesn't matter what culture you're from. If you break the law, you break the law. Everyone should be treated equally. That is what the rule of law in this country means.
Do you still level your criticism at the Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood and at Sir Keir Starmer? Because speaking this morning, Ms Mahmood has called on the Sentencing Council to reverse her guidance, and Sir Keir Starmer said he's disappointed with the decision. Shabana Mahmood as well saying it's unacceptable. I mean, they're all against it by the sounds of things, so shouldn't your issue be with the Sentencing Council rather than with the government?
Well, Starmer and the Justice Secretary are responsible for the mess that the country is now in. A representative of the Justice Secretary was present in the very meeting at which this guidance was approved, and yet did nothing. The Justice Secretary has had weeks since I raised this with her to act, to legislate in Parliament, to sack the Sentencing Council members who produced this. She has done nothing. She's been asleep at the wheel. And now we've discovered that her own department, not the Sentencing Council, her own department has been making guidance left, right and centre that creates further aspects of two-tier justice. I'm afraid the situation is very clear. It is two-tier justice under two-tier Keir. We've got to stop this. There are just hours remaining for this two-tier sentencing guidance to be removed, or else we're going to be waking up tomorrow morning in a country where our justice system is infected by identity politics. That's wrong, it's unfair, and we've got to stop it.
At the time of scrapping quangos, do you think that the Sentencing Council should be scrapped?
I think we need to look at that now. It is not right that judges and those on this unelected quango can make serious policy changes that affect our criminal justice system in such a profound way without ministerial oversight. That is why I produced a bill which said that ministers had the power to block or to amend new guidance so that we'd never get into this situation again. So far, as of this morning, Labour have refused to do that. We'll see whether we bounce them into it over the course of this week. But as of today, they've refused to do that. So in just 16 hours' time, this bias guidance is going to come into place. And there will be lawyers and judges right now preparing cases for tomorrow under these bias guidelines.
Story this morning, our judges are being advised to consider trauma from historical racism and discrimination when they decide on a criminal's bail.
Well, it's part of plans reportedly being drawn up by the Ministry of Justice, but there's already been backlash, with the Conservatives saying it creates a two-tier justice system.
With us in the studio, Oscar Redrop, political advisor, joins us now. I actually sort of really couldn't believe what I was reading about this. So could I argue that maybe my background was more disadvantaged than yours, and then they would go lighter, more lenient on me for certain criminal things? I mean, basically, we can all go in and barter our position.
Yeah, I mean, it's complete insanity. I mean, I think it's all fair enough in terms of, you get a team of, defence lawyers, that's how it works, they build a case, that's the whole point in defence, but for it to actually be written into the sentencing guidelines is crazy. I cannot tell you. And this isn't something that's, some think tanks put together or, is projected to come in 2045 or whatever. Like, this is happening in, within 24 hours. This sentencing guidance will come into force. It completely undermines everything, every pillar in terms of that we have and hold dear in this country in terms of equality under the rule of law. It is insane. It will make people feel absolutely... it will probably embolden kind of criminal activity in many ways.
But the idea is, if you're from an ethnic background, for instance, the sentencing panel are being told, say that poor Oscar here, whatever, Oscar, you've had it rough already, or your grandparents had it rough in this country, and therefore you're a product of your environment or your upbringing or the fact that the cards were dealt against you, therefore we're going to cut whatever sentence we would normally give in half.
Yeah, but it can't work like that. The defence can make that case, but for it to be already, ahead of that, before it even reaches, for and against, a court of law, for it to be written into guidance like that, it's like I said, I can't emphasise enough. It undermines everything that almost, like, in terms of equality under the rule of law, this country's built on. And
this is something that I just come across day after day after day. And politicians will complain about this and spokespeople will complain about this or advocate it or whatever. But somebody is implementing it. Somebody is in charge of implementing a policy like that. So who is it, and can they be told to sling their hook?
Well, look, I mean, the really brutal reality to that is no. I mean, the government now are trying to push for emergency last-minute legislation to try and get this kiboshed effectively. But, sources very close to the government have said in the media, actually, they've been briefing it out, that actually it's unlikely they'll be able to get that done. We should have a separation between kind of our justice system and politics. But at the same time, what's probably happened here, I imagine, is that this has been coming down the track. The Justice Secretary would have been aware of it, probably didn't pay close attention to it, probably had advisors in there or civil servants in there who were like, yeah, that sounds fair enough, whatever.
Robert Jenrick says that Shabana Mahmood was asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. And then all of a sudden, media pressure comes out. The sheer insanity of it probably comes home to roost. Normal people who go about their daily lives, cotton onto it and go, what kind of country am I living in? How do we not have equality under the rule of law? This is insane. And then all of a sudden, she's out there trying to backpedal and try and get a grip on this. It's probably too little too late. And just really quickly, lastly on that, if people think, oh, what does it really matter, really? It cuts to everything we should hold dear in this country in terms of equality under the rule of law. And the Justice Secretary, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if they can't kibosh this with emergency legislation, she's got to go.
In terms of the timing of all of this, the slashing quangos are at least saying that they're trying to. Do you think this calls into question the future of the Sentencing Council? Do you think it needs to go?
Well, look, politics and justice are intertwining ever more, and, you can discuss whether you think that's a positive or a negative. But this will hugely damage and undermine them moving forward. But, politicians can't get, a free pass on this. There would have been meetings about this would have been on the radar, and there would have been civil servants, and maybe even potentially the Justice Secretary and the people close to her, who were sat twiddling their thumbs, thinking, oh, yeah, that sounds fair enough, OK, sounds good, no worries, guys. And this is the mess that it's caused. And, anyway, who the hell am I? But I honestly don't see how she can remain in the role if, in 24 hours' time, they're not able to get a grip on and pull this back. There's no point.